This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the best all-in-one platform for all of your website building needs. Hey guys, it's Celestia, and as many of you know because I've never been quiet about it, I love horror. Art, movies, comics, shows, books. From the slightly spooky to the downright disturbing, I'm usually in love with pretty much all of it. So as both a fan of the creepy and paranormal and a sucker for dry comedy and witty banter, it came as no surprise that BuzzFeed Unsolved was my favorite series on YouTube back in the day when it started. It was a YouTube series investigating the paranormal and researching unsolved mysteries, while two dumb guys that you couldn't help but love spent 90% of their time antagonizing each other in the most entertaining way possible, and maybe 10% of their time actually investigating. Most people have at least heard of it, even if they haven't seen it themselves, because it was easily one of BuzzFeed's most famous, popular, and widely known and loved shows, quickly becoming a classic in YouTube history that will likely never be forgotten. And while it was eventually cancelled, those two dumb, lovable guys I mentioned weren't done looking for ghosts and proof of conspiracy theories. The Ghoul Boys, less commonly known by their real names, Ryan Bergara and Shane Madej, continued their investigations even after leaving BuzzFeed by forming their own studio, Watcher Entertainment. Watcher hosted a multitude of different shows from then on, including everything from a puppet show where a little blue guy teaches you about the atrocities of history through the magic of song, to a series of cozy campfire storytelling sessions where the world's most unqualified bartender gets Ryan and Shane progressively more drunk as they tell scary stories submitted by viewers. A lot of them are absolute gems and found great success, but viewers that migrated over from watching BuzzFeed Unsolved were particularly excited to see them begin Mystery Files and Ghost Files, two shows dedicated to what they were best known for, paranormal investigation and true crime analysis. As of recently, however, that's not really what they're best known for anymore. A few months ago, Watcher Entertainment announced that they were leaving YouTube for good and moving to a streaming platform of their own, Watcher TV, and their content was no longer going to be free. That streaming platform had a monthly fee, and the videos that their fans had fallen in love with watching regardless of the state of their finances were suddenly going to be a lot less accessible. It was a relatively low fee, but it was enough to spark so much controversy in response that discussion of it dominated the internet, something I'm sure most of you saw no shortage of. They did walk back this announcement and decide to continue to release their videos on YouTube for free, while also offering them on Watcher TV early and without ads. But that didn't stop a lot of longtime fans from feeling hurt and disillusioned by the entire affair. Now, I'm sure you're wondering how this relates to art, and I'm getting there, I'm sorry. I'm not actually here to talk about that controversy itself, or give any opinion on whether what they did was right or wrong, whether or not they should have been forgiven for it, or really anything about the situation itself. That's been covered more than enough already, and I'll link the Right Opinions deep dive into it in the description if you're interested in the details. What I will be discussing, however, is one of the reasons that Ryan in particular had for making such a controversial choice in the first place, because it had much more of an impact than I ever thought it would. It made me take a long, hard look at my art and sincerely reconsider everything about it, from the ways my style has changed to the kind of artist I want to be, and it's something I think a lot of artists might need to hear. I needed to hear it, and it took this seemingly unrelated internet drama for me to even realize it was a problem I had, so I'm talking about it today for anyone who might be in the same position. I really didn't think the Watcher TV controversy would be the thing to make me rethink everything about the way I view art of all things, but here we are. But before explaining what the hell all of this even has to do with art and that revelation, I'd like to first take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. Regular viewers know very well that Squarespace has been supporting this channel for a very long time, something that's made clear by the fact that every time I make a new video, I have new comments to feature here from viewers saying it's not a Duchess Celestia video without a Squarespace mention, and expressing alarm when there isn't one. And there's a reason I've been working with them for so long. I sincerely believe that they're the best website building and hosting platform out there, something I learned firsthand by building my own portfolio there long before that partnership began. They have so many tools and templates that make it so easy that it's fun for artists to build beautiful, professional-looking portfolios, no matter what kind of vibe they're looking for. And it's the perfect place to display your work in a way that really makes it shine. But it's not just portfolios, as wonderful as their options for them are. Their massive, versatile library of templates includes perfect options for every type or category of site that you could possibly need, from portfolios, stores, and blogs to this very serious and carefully curated collection of reaction images that you're seeing right now. And since you could customize literally everything about your site with just a few clicks, it's easy to make any template that you choose your own. And with features that help you maximize your site's functionality and visual design tools that make establishing valuable brand recognition easy, they offer everything you need to bring your dream site to life. And if your dream site happens to include an online store, that's just as easy to add using the Squarespace Commerce platform, since it lets you do everything from manage your inventory to take sales and even to print shipping labels. It's just as versatile versatile for your customers too, since they offer all of the most popular payment methods like Klarna, ACH Direct Debit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and ClearPay, as well as the option to send individualized invoices to specific clients. Whether you're an artist in need of a portfolio, an entrepreneur building an online store, a creator setting up an interactive blog, or a small business owner making a landing page, Squarespace is the place to do it. And you can find out yourself by going to squarespace.com to get your own free trial today. And once you've built the perfect site that you're ready to launch, you can get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain by going to squarespace.com/Duchess linked in the description. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and please go check them out. Alright, now let me explain why the hell I'm even talking about Ryan Bergara and the Watcher controversy on an art commentary channel, because I promise I have reasons. Ryan's reasons, actually. See, the Watcher team had a lot of different motivations leading them to make the choice to put their content behind a paywall, most of them coming down to the fact that they quite simply needed more money. They were spending more creating their shows than they were making from the primary sources of income that those shows generated, even with what I imagine is some fairly substantial funding from sponsorships, ad revenue, Patreon, and merch sales, and they needed to find a way to supplement that so that they could keep making them. Whether the approach they chose was the right one or not is up to you to decide, but the majority of fans, and now former fans, agreed very vocally that it was not. This was for a lot of reasons, a lot of which are explained in that deep dive that I linked earlier, and none of which are really relevant to the topic at hand but one. They only had to find new funding at all because they were spending so much on production, and no one cared about that production in the first place. Okay, I mean they cared a little. Their intro animations and new logos and visuals are really cool, and I'm sure many others see the value that they bring to the quality of the shows that they're used for. I don't think anyone's arguing that the production elements that cost Watcher Entertainment so much money don't look good. There's no denying that pretty much every aspect of their videos saw a significant and appreciated rise in quality, from the video editing to the formatting to the sound and visual design. But none of that was why their fans watched those shows before those improvements were made, and almost all of them agreed that none of them were necessary. If none of that high production value was present, they'd like their videos just as much, because of the content of the videos themselves and the charm of their personalities. So essentially, from the fans' perspective, they were saying, we can't afford to keep making content available for free because we're spending too much on a part of it that you don't really care about anyway, so pay us so we can keep doing that. And a lot of people naturally responded, or you could just stop making the part of it that no one cares about anyway. It doesn't need to be TV quality for people to watch and love it. It just needs to be Ryan and Shane. But Ryan in particular very passionately disagreed. He's spoken at length on multiple occasions about how his dream was to make their content into TV quality shows, transforming their own ideas into videos that were so highly produced and well made that they had the professionalism and polish to rival that of cable television, if not surpass it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful dream to have, and is absolutely a worthwhile goal to work towards. But it seemed obvious to me and many others that that level of production quality should be a bonus that could be worked towards eventually once they developed the income to afford it, not a necessary feature right off the bat that was so important that they needed to charge fans just to pay the production bills. And I was baffled that Ryan couldn't see what was so obvious to me, that his audience had never shared that dream, and they didn't value the content he made based on the production value that he was seeking. They valued it because it was unique, it was theirs, it was full of personality and banter and detailed research and creative presentation, and all of the things that made BuzzFeed Unsolved the success it had already been, back when it was still just two guys on a set with simple editing and nothing much flashier than their commentary to make viewers fall in love with it. Ryan may have wanted it to have TV quality production value, but almost none of his viewers cared if it did. They liked the new intros and animations and effects and editing, but they would be watching their shows if they had them or not. And I thought it was so ridiculous that he couldn't see that people were upset because they were effectively charging their fans for a part of their content that didn't need to be there for them to love it. Like charging them to eat the same simple meals that they loved just at a fancier restaurant when they would have been just as happy at a Denny's. And it was somewhere around the first hour of ranting about this to my wife that I realized my own blatant hypocrisy, because I did exactly the same thing with my art. Here's the first art piece that I was ever proud of making. It's full of flaws and mistakes, but the blocky cell shading, thick line art, and vibrant high contrast colors gave it character that was memorable and unique regardless of those mistakes. And then I became obsessed with improving, using more detailed and realistic rendering techniques and anatomy, trading in the simplistic cell shading I loved for more complex painting that I thought was more impressive and would make my art look better. So I redrew that piece multiple times over the years as I worked towards that goal, thinking of pretty much nothing other than my vision of being able to make it as high quality and technically impressive as possible. I corrected mistakes as I came to notice more, and that was good, but I also changed all of the stylistic choices that I'd made because I liked them so that they would look more like what I thought other people liked and found visually appealing, turning the original piece into something that may have been vaguely more technically proficient, but also something completely devoid of any of the uniqueness and character that it had in the beginning. And for more than 5 years, I didn't notice. I, like Ryan, was so obsessed with my idea of what it looked like to make good art that I didn't see at all that polish and technical quality and detail was never what gave it that value in the first place. I posted a short a couple years ago showing the progression of my redraws of this piece over the years, proud of what I considered to be significant improvement, because I'd fixed most of the things that were wrong with the original and made it shinier and fancier and quote-unquote better. And while some people did think that made it better, I was surprised and honestly a little bit hurt by the number of people commenting that they liked the original better, even if its technical quality was lower. Even when I sold at conventions, people outright expressed disappointment that I had retired that original version, because they'd rather have bought that. It had more character, it had personality. And it's only recently that I've looked at those pieces again after this whole Watcher controversy and realized that I actually agree. I've always worked with multiple styles, the simplistic cel-shaded one that you see in the original, and the more detailed and complex style that it gradually comes to display more of. And while I valued both, I don't think I ever realized that a part of me subconsciously viewed the latter as fundamentally better than the former just because it took more effort. The rendering techniques were more complex, there was more detail, and I thought that would make people think it was more impressive and like it more. I thought it would make me think it was more impressive and like it more. And it hit me all at once that I had kind of let that other style die, even though I loved it, because I was so obsessed with higher production value that I couldn't see any value in anything else. And I'm not saying I don't like the style I did the final redraw in. I still use a variation of it for most of my work, and I enjoy the way it looks and the process of using it. But I was wrong to take a piece that I did in the other style I love just as much and fix and improve it by changing it to one that I thought was more impressive. There was nothing wrong with that style in the first place. I could have fixed the anatomical errors and technical inaccuracies without being so obsessed with improvement and polish that I erased all of the other stylistic elements that gave it character, just because they were simple in comparison. And I had this pervasive subconscious belief that simple was worse. I could have fixed the bones of the piece, so to speak, without painting over the surface. And I suddenly felt like both an asshole and an idiot for not getting why Ryan couldn't see that production value wasn't what made his shows so beloved, even if that production value was something that he viewed as proof of it being better. When you have an idea of what makes your art good in your head, regardless of what kind of art that is, you gradually lose sight of all of the other things that make it good that aren't a part of that idea. You stop seeing value in any part of it that doesn't match your vision for what improvement looks like, and you become blind to its strengths by obsessing over correcting its weaknesses. That realization hit me really, really hard. Whether I agreed with Watcher's decision to paywall their content or not, I understood why the production value that viewers cared so little about was still so important to Ryan, that it motivated that decision. To him, it was what gave his content value, and I get now how you can be so obsessed with your own idea of what gives your work value that you stop even hearing other people saying that it doesn't to them. I spent 2 years being hurt by those comments saying my original piece was better, because to me, technical improvement was all that mattered to meet my vision for artistic quality. But all those comments were saying was that that wasn't all that gave that piece value in the first place, and I just couldn't see that. I didn't want to see it, because seeing it would mean reevaluating everything I thought I wanted my art to be. And I've been thinking about that non-stop pretty much ever since, because I think a lot of artists do that. I think a lot of us have this inherent belief, whether we consciously know or agree with it or not, that complexity equals quality, that production value is more important than what's being produced itself, that improving as an artist means developing and constantly demonstrating more technical skill, adding more and more detail and using techniques that are more and more complex. And I think that might be holding a lot of us back from finding beauty in what makes our art valuable to us, independent from that vision that we've been taught to have of what success and improvement looks like. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with adding complexity and detail and polished rendering to art, or shifting your style in that direction because that's sincerely what you want. I'm saying that at least for me, I wanted that less because of my own preferences, and more because of the idea that I had been taught of what art improvement and quality looked like. It wasn't because I liked that style more, it was because I thought it was technically better and therefore more impressive and valuable. And I spent way too long completely blind to the fact that I'd become so obsessed with that idea of becoming a better artist that I didn't even remember what I liked about my own art before that became my first and foremost priority. And I think it's really important for all artists to reflect on that themselves a lot more often than most of us do. I think it's important for us to take the time to look at our art and our goals for it and think, do I want to change this about my art because I like it more and think it would make it better, or because I think it'll be more impressive and well received and generally viewed by others as better that way? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with changing your style. I don't think there's anything wrong with learning more complex techniques and adding detail and polish and production value, so to speak, to your art, even if it means erasing stylistic choices that you had made previously in the process. I just think that if you do, it should be because that's what you want, not because that's what you've been taught to believe is what improvement looks like. Styles change and evolve over time, and what gives each one aesthetic value depends entirely on the opinion of the viewer and creator. So I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't give yours the freedom to grow with you just because that growth might mean abandoning abandoning certain elements of it that some people liked more, even if you didn't. I just don't think you should abandon those elements because you think doing so will make it better by appealing to a more mainstream audience or demonstrating more technical proficiency. The Watcher controversy was in large part motivated by the fact that Ryan was so blinded by his idea that quality content meant highly produced TV quality content that he couldn't see that what gave it value to the majority of his audience wasn't that. That was a bonus that they could take or leave. What gave it value was the fact that it was theirs, and they loved them. It was the passion that they put into each show, and the personality they imbued them with. And I don't blame him for not being able to see that anymore, because I can understand wanting to improve so badly that you can't see that the ways that you're improving aren't necessary for your work to be good. In Ryan's case, I have no idea if his desire to give Watcher's shows a TV-level production value was because that was what he really wanted, or because that was what he subconsciously associated with improvement in quality. And I'm not here to speculate one way or another. It could be that he genuinely does see that as the definition of good because that's what he values most, and his desire to pursue it is purely because he wants to. And regardless of the way he went about it, and this controversy in particular, if that's the case, I don't think that's wrong at all. Even if we as viewers don't judge its quality by its production value, it's his content. And if he genuinely does, I'm not saying he's in any way wrong not to prioritize what viewers want over his own vision for his work just because we don't value what he does. I just hope that it is because it's what he wants, and not because he thinks that the immense value that he, Shane, and the rest of the Watcher team contribute to it isn't enough. I don't regret improving that original piece by fixing actual errors. I regret erasing its style and watering down every element that made it unique so that other people would think it was good regardless of what I wanted. That's why I'm redrawing it one final time in the speed paint that you're seeing now, because I want to give it the redraw that it deserved in the style it was made for, because that style isn't worse than my more complex alternative style just because it's simpler. It has value in different ways, and I can improve it without erasing those. Like I said, I still use both styles. I still see value of my own, independent from any underlying subconscious preconceptions, in the more realistic and complex elements that I once associated with quality. But now I see value in those elements because I like how they look, not because I think they're an improvement over others. And I want to make art in both styles because I like them for their own reasons. And I'm so glad that this whole thing, if nothing else, opened my eyes to the fact that there are more things to value in art than just technical skill. I can let myself like both of these pieces the same amount now, even though one uses simpler elements and techniques than the other, because I understand that those techniques and elements aren't what make each one valuable. Your style should evolve because you want it to, not because you're erasing what makes it yours to make it better. And you shouldn't do what I did for so long and forget the value of those things that make it yours just because they might not make it objectively better. Making it yours is just as important. Hell, I think it's more important. It doesn't have to be unique either. It can be as generic and nondescript as you want, so long as that's because you like it that way and not because you think that's better than more unique elements that you prefer. That is just my opinion though. I'm curious to hear what you guys think because it is a nuanced topic that I'm sure views differ on, so please let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Special thank you as always to channel members Joseph Solomon, TC Pratt, Zelda Devarag 42, Haruki Saluzzo, King Good James, CB Lil Thing, Art of Amethyst Fable, Extinction Animation, Andy the Hedgehog, Kai the Memer, Jazz, and Mad Girls Arts, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, Cora Fear, Jamisha Walker, Lengshi, Kim Yen, Crazy Isar, Gentong, Grace Nick Xavier, Blah Mage, TC Pratt, Finn, Celine Merriman, El Duchess, The Stray Dog, Ulura, Greg Noble, Decagon, Jenny Chan, Cat Bus, Mac, Lucy Yamajiki, Selena Bibi, Day, Totally Shogun, Insomniac Sleep Schedule, Wing Tang Wong, Marie Greer, Potato, and Jazz, and I'll see you in the next one.